My guest for today, Dr. John I. Abuere. He's a fellow of the Nigeria Institute of Management, FNIM, former director, core welfare at the NYSC Directorate headquarters here in Abuja. He is also the founder, CEO, Center for Childcare and Youth Development, Abuja. But beyond all of that, Dr. Abuere is also a development expert. Good to see you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Right, sir. Dr. Emeka Okengwu is also joining us for these discussions. Of course, you know that anytime we are discussing issues of development, he is always a voice that resonates very powerfully from here. Dr. Emeka Okengwu is a development expert. He's also joining us for this discussion. Good afternoon. Good to see you.
My pleasure, sir. Happy New Year.
All right, sir. Quickly, the National Economic Council. How important do you think the National Economic Council is, looking at it from the prism of the Constitution as one of the, I think, 9 or 10 federal executive bodies created by the Constitution?
Well, for us to be able to appreciate the NEC, one must first of all look at some concepts of society. One of those that readily comes to mind is participation. The idea of participation, that it is always good for citizens to participate in decision making in order to make such decisions fruitful. What you participated in doing, you are likely going to pursue it with vigor for success. The next relevant concept I think we need to look at is the concept of elites. This one posits that in any given situation or society, there are quite a few number of people that take decision. And once those people are not involved, there will be crisis. That is. But the third one is the idea of history. What has been the historical experience in Nigeria? What is it that we can make out of the NEC? Against these three backgrounds, one can begin to evaluate. And you now ask the question, is it important? Constitutionally, NEC is very, very important. It creates avenue for participation of governors and other members. It creates avenues for interaction between the government, and it creates opportunity for the elites to reach harmony. And again, when we talk about history, it gives a sense of responsibility to the vice president, who is the chairman. And when you realize that in a country like Nigeria, where we say the vice, whether governor is a spare tire, we now see that the makers of the Nigeria Constitution try as much as possible to give visibility to the vice president of this country. Because in some other countries, it's actually the president that is the chairman of such a body. Yeah. Having stated that one, it now behoves on us to say, if we have a sense of history, we must make sure that the NEC performs the function it is been set out for. Haven't given you that background, I would like to say quickly that for me, the NEC is very, very critical for developmental purposes in this country. It brings harmony, and by the time we'll be discussing and you look at chapter 2 of the Constitution, you see why it is very, very important that we should have a NEC.
The National Economic Council.
Yes.
Dr. Okengwu, from your own perspective, how important do you think the National Economic Council is, or the Constitution just created it as just any other body?
Well, you are important. You are as important as the powers that you have. That's very, very critical.
Okay.
And when you look at a NEC, that is an advisory body that has no schedule. You now begin to want to look at this word importance a second time. When you look at the chairman of a NEC who does not have any constitutional powers, as it were, you now begin to wonder, because everybody who makes up the NEC, which is the governors and the governor of the central bank, these are the members of the NEC. What relationship does the office of the governor of the central bank have with the office of the vice president? What relationship does the office of vice president have with that of the governor? So it's important that in trying to, make this thing, the Constitution was very, very clear when it said this is going to be an advisory body to the president. So
okay.
what this simply means is that the only way you can begin to now talk about issues of NEC is when you now look at the man's administrative structure. When Jonathan came in, he set up the economic management team. Everybody who is everybody in his government is an economic management team. All the decisions are being taken in the economic management team. There is no line that says that whatever decisions that are generated by whatever committee, think tank, or whatever of government will be subject to discussion and ratification by the National Economic Council. But I'm still talking about roles. So trust me on this one. I think it's just like the Governors Forum, where you also now gather together to be able to now share your thoughts and feelings. And there is no framework to be able to take whatever it is you have taken as a decision.
Is that a failing of the law?
It's a failing of the law.
Because there's no way you can talk about the economy of Nigeria. You begin to talk about the economy of components. The economy of Nigeria is the economy of Nigeria as a whole, and it involves what happens in all the component states.
You didn't even mention the economy. No. Just read it now. You're holding the constitution.
Excuse me.
Okay.
My own take slightly differs from Emeka. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, right. Look, when you define things essentially,
17 and 18.
If you define things essentially in terms of power alone, you may be making a mistake. Yeah, it's true that the NEC is advisory in nature, but people work on advice. A constitution is put in place to guide people to do certain things, and once a matter is a subject of constitution, it must be respected, otherwise there will be no order. So we should look at it from the angle that, yes, the founding fathers who wrote that constitution saw something in front, that we need constant advice. We need to see how the economy is controlled, the direction is going to go, and the group of people that actually manage the state, and as well as the central bank, should be able to sit down from time to time to advise the authority, Mr. President. He needs such advice from time to time, irrespective of whatever economic team he has set up. This is a constitutional requirement, a body, and they have a right to advise. They have a right to advise.
Let me help
whether the advice is taken or it's a different thing, but let different people do their job.
Please let me help.
Let me read what the provision of,
Yes.
of the Constitution is, whether we can draw some influence from them.
Yes.
The National Economic Council shall comprise the following members. I'm reading the schedule to the Constitution.
Yes.
Where the functions of those
Schedule
federal
2,
bodies, yes, federal executive bodies are listed. The Vice President, who shall be the chairman, be the governor of each state of the federation and the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, established under the Central Bank of Nigeria Decree number 1991, or any enactment replacing that decree. Now, 19 says the National Economic Council shall have the power to advise the president concerning the economic affairs of the federation,
Just go ahead.
and in particular on measures necessary for the coordination of the economic planning efforts or economic programs of the various governments of the federation.
Okay, can you
Now that's a huge responsibility.
can you hold it there?
Yes.
Now, first and foremost,
Please avert your mind to the fact that
Yeah.
there's the use of the word shall there.
Shall,
yes.
Can the president refuse to have the National Economic Council advise him?
The most important thing is that the president has what we call the economic management team that is getting his economic frameworks and programs,
Which is not a product of law.
which is not a product of law.
Yes. But this is a product of
But
law.
this one that is a product of law is very ambiguous.
No.
Okay.
Has said to you, shall advise the president
Yes.
on economic coordination. The proper thing should have just simply been, if you look at the other schedules of the other listed agencies of government in the same class, they are given specific tasks to be able to do. Meaning that whatever it is you now decide becomes subject to further legislation. Right now, what it is you're doing is that you finish sitting down, and then somebody now is not even saying that the central bank shall prepare. Had it been that law says the central bank shall prepare for discussion at the economic, council, National Economic Council, XYZ, having to do with the economy. Please hold on, so you can appreciate where I'm coming from. Because you see, what it is you're dealing with here is you must be able to understand that this is all about President Ebele Jonathan as a person, and not President Ebele Jonathan as an office. Because if you are advising the president, remember that the president is one person, the Federal Executive Council is another person. Is the advices of this committee, can it be subjected to approvals or further discussions and deliberations by the Federal Executive Council? This is where the problem is. There are so many advisory bodies. NGF is an advisory body. And we have a president who has said, I can appoint all the whole advisors. You tell me what it is you want to do. The one I want to take, I'll take. So if that thing does not tie him, just like the National Assembly, they pass a law.
Yeah. The point you seem to be making, as I understand it, is that there's limitation in this law.
Yes.
Does the limitation also include the fact that if it's all about the economy, there are so many agencies of government that also ought to be made to be part of this council.
Beautiful.
For example, agencies of government that are involved in revenue generation.
Beautiful.
None of them is listed here. But I also know that in the past, sir, we've had membership of the National Economic Council that has included so many other persons or authorities that were not listed in the Constitution. At one point, I think at the beginning of the administration, the life of this administration, there were some meetings of the National Economic Council where you had the Minister of National Planning.
Yes.
Where you even had the
then you had the National Economic Intelligence Commission.
Exactly. So many other bodies that were not listed here. And I'll try to tie that back to the point that Dr. Okengwu made, which is that there is limitation in the provisions of this constitution, and it doesn't compel compliance as it is.
It doesn't compel compliance.
No, see, the issue is not whether there is compliance or there is compulsion.
It doesn't even compel obedience.
Yes, no. You see, the president has a right to accept any idea or not accept. It's there, but he has also a right to demand from that body advice.
Is there an obligation?
An obligation is a constitutional obligation. It's there in the Constitution. It wasn't written for the fun of it. The point is this: as a manager, I know that for you to be able to advise, you would have put in place a process of monitoring, evaluating, and say, look, if we do this one, by so will be there. So I expect that the National Economic Council should also have such a structure, so that we monitor the economy, inform their own decision, and be able to say, look, this is our stand on this, and if you do it this way, we are likely going to be somewhere. The fact that it isn't it's not an enforcing agency does not mean that, or does not remove the importance of that body. It is very, very important. One, if you look at section 2, chapter 2, as I was saying, look at the demands of what the Constitution expects. It expects you to have control of the economy. It expects you to generate to harness resources of the people to make them of the society to make the people happy. It expects you to ensure that the economy is not put in the hands of few people. It expects you to provide, if the resources are there, to provide education, etc., etc. The NEC should be able to sit down and advise along this line. This is where the country should be in year 1, in year 2, in year 3. Yes.
And considering the fact that the country has just one economy, because you cannot talk about the economy of Nigeria and limit it to what the federal government alone is doing. The totality of what makes the economy of Nigeria includes what is going on at the federal and what is going on at the component state, isn't it?
Yes. The point one has to know, and that was why I started by giving a background of the concept of elites and the concept of participation. One, this country is one in great hurry for development, and it needs all the hands on deck. And the governors are very, very important. And we needed a body that will synchronize the various ideas, the various economic plans of the various government of this country, as well as of the center. So we shouldn't remove that fact. What I am saying is this: so long as this forum provides opportunity for people to meet, the more they meet, the more understanding they have. I would expect that it should be meeting regularly.
Okay. We still overlook the point that Dr. Okengwu made earlier, which is what I want to return to. His point, as I understood it then, is that this body just exists. There's no nexus between it and some other critical agencies of government. For instance, the Office of Vice President, that is the chairman of the National Economic Council, there's no link between, as far as this law is concerned now, there's no link between the decisions taken by NEC and the Federal Executive Council, for example, or between it and the Office of the Executive President.
Look, do you hear the first sentence you read? He has the power to advise. Haven't been told that they advised the government and Mr. President,
yes, and
the President said no? What we've seen in the press is that, that for one reason or the other, it has not been able to meet for the past 4 or 6 months. This is a different ballgame. Yeah. He has the power. The body has the power to advise. Let us see the quality of advice is given. And the President, in a way, I agree with him, is not compared.
Has the setting up or the existence of the President's economic team created a rivalry between that body and this body?
He has made them very inconsequential.
Has he made? Yeah, yes, that's actually the right.
He's made it very.
Has he made this leg inconsequential?
It's made it very inconsequential because the economic management team, the Secretariat of Economic Management team, is in the National Planning Commission.
But considering the kind of economy that we run and the issues that ought to be coming before the NEC,
yes,
can we actually say that that is correct in law and in fact?
Benga, remember there's also the National Council of States. Remember? Yeah. Let us be able to look at this thing in a very...
But the National Council of States advises the President generally. This is on economic issues.
You see, what I'm just trying to tie it together. I'm trying to say to you, when you are talking about economic issues,
yes,
economic issues is everything.
Revenue generation,
economic
how
issues,
revenue is shared.
There's what you call socio-economic systems, political, economic, political, everything that has to do, what's economy? What's economics? Your economic system has to do with everything. So what they are saying is that this is a body that interfaces with the federal government, with the vice president, with the central bank governor, with the governors of the states. The question that should worry you is what documents, what data, what strategic paper, who develops it, who produces it, what are they discussing, and who is now the person who is presenting it for them to be discussing. Remember that a lot of these governors are politicians. Most of them are not economists. Most of them are not analysts. Okay. So what it is you want to do is that even if the central bank now brings a document and presents in front of, had it been this thing says, governors will interface with the central bank governor being advisor to, remember that there's president and president in council. All you'd have just needed to do was to say that whatever decisions that come out of this body will be presented to the president in council. The moment you put in that word, do you know what it simply means? It simply means that whatever it is that is now discussed at the NEC has become something that is now backed by some legislation and law. Let me try to correct my brother, and it's important you understand this, sir. When you are running a constitution, it's not an ambiguous document. And when the constitution decides to be ambiguous, you cannot interpret it otherwise. You must interpret it in that ambiguity, so that you can be able to understand where it's coming from. You cannot say that the president is compelled to listen to this advice.
No.
Hold on, please, let me land. When we had the budget embryo, the members of the House came here and said, Mr. President, what the Constitution says is that when we bring out this budget, either you say no or you say yes. If you say no, you refuse to put your assent. If you say yes, sign it. There is no
in between.
No. In this case now, the constitution says, I am going to be sitting with you, Benga. 3 of us will talk, and after that, we go and advise the person.
No, it's beyond that.
That advice we're going to give to the person is not tied to the board of AIT.
No,
and you're seeing yourself as important. Now, but the question is, let me tell you what should worry us. We have entered into an election year. 2 months now going. We have started not talking about the budget. 2 months now going. We have not started talking about any programs. That's what I think should be able to worry us. But the question,
those are part of the issues that have come up now. For example, economic issues that this body ought to have discussed and taken positions, include the issue of budget, the benchmark for the budget. Because this is what affects everybody.
But it's not listed. It's not listed. It's not their job.
No.
It's not listed. If they don't do it, would the budget not be presented?
Excuse me. That is not.
Sorry, sir. Let me just get a yes or no answer to this.
Yes.
Does the fact that the issues that the body ought to be looking at are also not clearly stated out, does that mean a drawback for this provision?
It means a total drawback for the provision.
Okay, let me stop. The first point I have to clear is this. The fact that somebody is not an economist does not mean that he does not know something about development. And I think that is why in Bangladesh, the word development is used rather than economics. That's number one. Number two, people implement decisions. And the governors are implementers in their own level, in their own states. And they are being brought together in the forum to give their own advice from time to time. And two, this is a constitutional requirement, which means it takes precedence over whether it's ambiguous or not ambiguous. We need to respect the constitution of this thing. So what I'm trying to say is this. The fact that it hasn't got an executive power that is its advisory in nature does not remove the fact that it is an important organ and that it has room to generate ideas for the development of this country. It has rooms not only to generate those ideas, but to ensure that those ideas so generated, if accepted, are implemented, both at the federal and the state level. That three, that it is an opportunity for people to meet and get to know themselves. That the problem of this country has been, one, lack of interaction, fear of the unknown, and this is one opportunity once in a month for people to meet and get to know the others. Three, there is a forum where people could actually exchange notes. For example, I was in Akwa Ibom. I was quite impressed. What stopped Governor Akpabio from sharing notes on that? These are the tricks that I'm using, and other people will imbibe it. And the fourth point, and this is very, very important, that these people that we are thinking, this forum that we are thinking, has this, the capability of actually putting a machinery in motion so that it will be collecting economic intelligence for the development of this country. The fact that you are advised, after all, you are talking about, is the vice president, does the vice president not see the president on daily basis to say, okay, this is what we met? The only fear I have about it is we try to make the National Economic Council look like a trade union. No, it's an advisory body set up to collect intelligence and advice. And as I said,
that's why we're asking the poser at the end of the day whether politics has crept into
and my conception of that body is that the moment you get in there, my dear, the moment you get to that neck, you set aside your politics. You set aside your ideology. The only ideology you need to know now is that of national loyalty, national development.
And the economy.
Yes. And that is what we are. So, but it would appear really that when people are still coming home, they go there with their own ideology, and the constitution speaks. If you look at this constitution, you get worried. That is worried about lack of unity. He wants to generate unity. He wants to generate patriotism. He wants to generate integration. He wants to generate love. And this is the kind of forum that we can do. That is the point I'm making. It's not whether
Dr. Okengwu, let's look at some economic issues that ordinarily should bring the federal government and the states together.
Yes.
On which both of them must meet and probably have a common accord. the budget, for example. The federal budget brings everybody together because the federal government gives the benchmark for revenue generation into not the pocket of the federal government, but into the federation account. And the federal government will fix the benchmark. Can the federal government, sitting alone as one of the three big borders, the federal, the state, and the local government, can the federal government, sitting alone as the biggest brother of the three, sit down alone and fix the budget benchmark, for example, without consultations with the other two tiers of government?
Thank you very much, Benga.
That's one issue. Another issue that, again, must necessarily bring all tiers of government together in a forum like the National Economic Council, again, is the issue of revenue generation. Shouldn't all tiers of government be aware of the parameters for revenue generation? How much, for example, are you expecting from, maybe say, custom and excise duty? How much are you expecting, for example, from Federal Inland Revenue Service? How much are you expecting from joint venture calls and all those stuff? These are economic decisions that ought to have been issues or agenda for discussion at a National Economic Council. So if the Economic Council does not meet, what input will the other two tiers of government have in all of these issues?
Thank you very much. Early in the year, we had a discussion in this studio, and we were talking about the budget. And I said to you that the budgetary process for you to be engaging and total has 14 steps that everybody now plays a role. Right now, you are having governors shouting, or let me now say a faction of the governors forum saying that they were not consulted when we were preparing that budget. Now, first and foremost, you now ask yourself, what is a budget and what is a budgeting process? Yeah. Budget is all about your income, if you may, and your expenditure, as it were. Right now in this country, from the last figures published by the National Bureau of Statistics, only Lagos State has an IGR
to be able to meeting his responsibilities without looking up to the center.
Beautiful. Now, you now come to this center and let's now look at what to call this our so-called big boy that everybody is looking up to. Why do we have an economy that generates 11 trillion annually and we have access to less than 4 trillion of that money, and then we go out into the international market again to go and start borrowing money to be able to now, try to now stagger our budget deficits? It is because, first and foremost, our revenue generation system does not align with the socio-economic realities that you require to be able to build an economic framework, an economic system.
Okay.
Now, because you have what they call this rent economy, a lot of people don't understand what rent economy means. So each time we'll come and talk about rent economy, like when they were talking about 40-something billion missing. And I said that was the most annoying statement the central bank could issue. Because, first and foremost, everybody knows that we don't produce oil in Nigeria. We are not an oil producing country. We are an oil producing location. The people who are producing the oil are paying us rent that you can call anything. Call it JV, call it production sharing, call it taxes, call it royalty. You don't have access to that production process. And you are not even value chaining anything that you're doing at all. Okay? So when you talk about these states and federal government are talking about revenue generation, what are you talking about? What are you coming to discuss? What are you contributing? Everybody knows that the only people who can talk about revenue generation in Nigeria are the IOCs. And we have an agent backed by law who is discussing with these people on our behalf. And we have a bank that is now collecting the money. All we now have is a federation account, which the constitution that you've just holding now has also spelled out how these monies are shared. Now, how can you be able to change this game? How can the states become important? Which was what I was trying to tell you earlier. It is not for you to come out. What they come to do there is tea party, for all I care and all I know. Except you're bringing something to the table. And Akwa Ibom State or Imo State or Abia State now says to you, there is a program that is supposed to be converting what's happening into Akwa Ibom to be beneficial to Abia, Imo. Okay? And we need at a more federal structure to begin to now share what they call common shared infrastructure. And for you to do that, Benga, you must be able to have the data. You must be able to have a government framework, like you mentioned. Which government agency is generating or supporting these meetings? If you're talking about revenue generation, we must be able to probably include the FIRS into this committee. If you're talking about infrastructure development, you must be now maybe talking about the ICRC. If you're talking about rail sector development, you will now be talking about probably the Ministry of Minerals and Mines and Steel. Until you are able to first and foremost form the framework, it is not for you to come and sit down. That's not what the Constitution says. And that's the question I've kept asking, and I want to ask, is if they don't meet in 2 years, first and foremost, first question number 1 to Igwenga, is there a timeline? Does the Constitution say they must meet?
That's also another lacuna.
So if the Constitution says
the law, as I read it, didn't provide that they should meet monthly.
If a man decides that
they were meeting monthly was a convention.
Yes, if a man decides people will meet once in the 4 years, and one advice you give me in 4 years is enough. What compels him? And what I'm trying to say is, how has this meeting, not holding, affected the operations of governance in Imo State, or Ekiti State, or Adamawa State? How has this meeting not holding affected, the implementation of the budget or preparation of the budget? These are the issues.
Okay.
These are valid issues, Dr.
Yeah, they are valid issues, but
yeah,
they seem to come back to where we started.
Yeah,
that we needed.
Let me refresh the question, which is that the economic issues that ordinarily should be discussed at this meeting are issues that bring everybody together.
Yes.
If the states don't have a voice, would they feature change? And can it not be inferred that probably it is because some of the states are beginning to ask the questions, particularly about revenue generation, the need for transparency in the process? Can that be a reason why at the federal level there is a lukewarm attitude to convening the meeting as and when due? Because if a meeting of this important organ does not hold in 6 months, then something's wrong.
The first thing I have to say, I wouldn't know whether it's a lukewarm attitude, but the truth of the matter is that Emeka has virtually come to realize that, or to the position that the National Economic Council is very, very important, because some of the issues he's saying are things that should actually be discussed at that meeting. The reference to the economic team doesn't surprise anything, because the economic team the economic team can actually benefit from the national economic listing. Having said that one, let us look at the Constitution. First of all, I want this nation and every person to realize that the Constitution is supreme, and anything there, takes precedence over any other thing. So we shouldn't even joke about it. If you are the chairman of an advisory body and you decide to be holding one meeting once in 4 years, that is your good luck. But I would think I would think, okay, you are laughing, that is your own cup of tea, and I don't want to use good luck. But the truth of the matter, I would think that if you are the chairman, you know that thing is very important. The intelligence it could generate will help the country forward. You will ensure that it's being heard. Now I'll take you one. One of the functions that we are supposed to do is that the Constitution expects that the state will promote a planned and balanced economic development, that the material resources of the nation are harnessed and distributed as best as possible to serve the common good, and that suitable accommodation, food, as well are provided, and that we should ensure that, or we should organize the economy in such a way as not to permit.
Are you reading? Huh? Is that the Constitution you are reading?
Yes.
That should be chapter 2.
Yes, chapter 2. Okay. In such a way.
Which is not justiciable.
No. Yes, it's not justiciable. I'm coming. I'm coming. Not to concentrate the weight of this nation on few hands. The point I'm trying to make, gentlemen, is simple. We have a framework to work. Within this context, governors can sit down, prepare paper, take position. What is happening to unemployment? What can we do to bring it about? Mr. President, this is our position.
Yeah. Universities were on strike for 6 months.
Yes.
And we are talking of all universities, including the ones owned by states.
Yes.
Now, the resolution of that crisis also should have involved states, because the needs assessment that was done covered all universities, now, including state-owned universities.
Number 2, what are we doing? Last year we had this budget. Why is it that it wasn't really fulfilled? These are critical issues. Now today, the budget has been presented. As usual, we have recurrent expenditure far in excess than the capital. These are things the NEC could sit down and deliberate what must we do necessarily to cut issues. You don't need to have executive power before you begin to do this.
I also know that some of the governors, particularly some governors from the oil producing states, Niger State, Delta State governor, for example, have had interaction with him, that they had spoken, passionately about the need to tackle this problem of oil theft. These are
issues that should be brought.
And oil theft is a drain on the nation's economy, and you have state governments that also have an idea as to how this could be tackled. And these are ideas that could be discussed at the National Economic Council.
Yes, if it's done and the paper is given to Mr. President, he cannot give it to his economic team again to further work on it. It's a process. And we should not really, because...
Who constitutes the Council of States?
The president constituted one.
No, who constitutes the membership of the Council of State? You have
former heads of states and government.
You have everybody there. What I'm trying to say to you is that this is very, very key. But like I said to you, it is not critical. It is not critical to our national development, because even if they don't meet,
the National Economic Council does not meet.
It is not critical to any developmental issue in the country, because from the way the Constitution has announced it, it would have been very germane. It would have been very key and necessary if the Constitution had allocated rights, privileges, clear-cut duties, functions and demands.
Okay, is that desirable? Is that the desirable?
Yes, it is.
Is it desirable that there is one common clearinghouse for economic issues this between the states and the federal government? There's need for one.
So either you merge them.
So there's need for the National Economic Council.
Yes, but
it has not been properly put on the pedestal,
structured and populated.
Okay.
It is not only about structuring. You must be able to populate. So the simple thing you can do is that either you met them with the National Council of States, where you now actually... Please, let me learn, sir. Please.
He's entitled to his own suggestion. Yes.
Please, where you now have ex-presidents who had run, where you now have ex-governors, where you now have ex-people who have been ex-that, ex-this, everybody on the same table. Benga, you were governor of Ekiti. You started poultry.
I wasn't.
No, I'm not. Okay. You started poultry. The poultry cost 2 million naira of Ekiti state funds. And right now, I'm not able to do anything. When you now begin to have that kind of robust meeting, if you can be able to enlarge this here, not when you have governor who drives in, have a central bank governor, and there is no constitutional or legal relationship amongst these people. And you're saying they are necessary. You're saying they're important. And meanwhile, the Constitution says you're advising the president and not president in council. Why are we chewing our head?
I think I don't know whether you understand it. It's not that he's saying that the National Economic Council is not necessary. It is necessary, but there are limitations. The way it has been...
God was saying that there are limitations. The only thing I'm saying is this.
Don't you agree with that point?
No. In spite, any organization, any agency can always be improved from time to time. That is what management is all about. But what I'm saying, within the provision of the Constitution, the NEC has much to do, and it should be seen as doing something. If it wasn't there, it shouldn't have been in the Constitution in the first instance. Let me quickly finish. When I was reading Clinton's biography, and one of the things he promised doing was to create or redefine or remodify the equivalent of what we are discussing today, and he did it. Today they still have it. Obama is the chairman of that council, and he's always with the economic advisor, in America. And there, what I'm trying to stress here is this: man, this is a forum where we have leaders of the state ruling this country. They have their own vision, they have their own plans, and they are coming to meet. They should be able from time to time to bring out economic intelligence, economic plans for the nation to work on. It is a different thing if we say, well, we can take this one and it's taken. We must not have executive power before these are done. Much more so when it is in the office of the vice president.
Some quick posers there. Do you think, sir, that the fact that the president has his own economic team to fall back on has taken the wind out of the sail of the National Economic Council? Don't forget that in constituting his economic team, the president has even gone ahead to even include some state governors as part of his economic team.
Yes, that is.
Has that not taken the wind out of the sail of the National Economic Council?
See,
such that the president can afford not to even think about the National Economic
The
Council?
president cannot afford not to, because he has a constitutional obligation to listen to. Otherwise it wouldn't have been this. He wouldn't. He set
but
it
if
up.
he has a parallel body that is,
he set
if
it
he
up.
has a parallel body that is giving him.
I read in 2011, the day he was setting up, there was hope everywhere. So if it was not important, he wouldn't have set it up.
Okay.
And people get
there was so much hope when the president inaugurated the National Economic Council.
We should find out why.
What do you think is responsible for the hopelessness now? For the
I don't know. I really don't
politics?
know. No, I don't
politics?
know. Maybe politics. I don't know. But I think that as a constitutional requirement, we need it. Okay. And we need it. There's no doubt about that. It's our first opportunity for cultural exchange, for information exchange, for economic intelligence exchange, and for interaction of all sorts.
Dr. Okengwu, we have to go now. 10 seconds.
Yes, sir. I think what we should do is that the governors had an opportunity to have amended this part of the law. Okay. Probably with this conversation we've had this afternoon.
To put the National Economic Council on a higher pedestal.
Beautiful. The process is still ongoing. Let them go back and make it right for it to function. As it is now, it's a tea party.
All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
They should add more value to the assignment at their doorstep.
All right. Thank you for your tweets as well. Let me quickly read about two of them. OJ says, you're exposing the lapses in the economic management team, etc. makes me wonder. I enjoy your program as always. That's OJ. Who's the next one? Holloway says, it's the political ideology of the governors that is holding the council back. The council shouldn't have been made of politicians. Thank you, Holloway. And Jacob says, Benga, over the years, what crucial role has the advice given by this council played to strengthen Nigeria's economy? All right, thank you. Keep the tweets coming. We'll do something about them tomorrow. We do appreciate your investing your time with us. Thank you, sir. My guest today have been Dr. John Abuere. He's a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Management, NIM, former director, core welfare at the NYSC headquarters directorate. He's the founder, CEO, Center for Childcare and Youth Development based here in Abuja. He's also a development expert. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time. And of course, Dr. Emeka Okengwu is a development expert. Thank you, sir. We do really appreciate your time. Thank you for investing your time with us again. I'll see you tomorrow, God willing. My name is Benga.